In the history of modern music, there are certain musicians whose influence becomes so widespread that listeners hear their sound everywhere, even when they don't realize it. Marcus Miller is one of those musicians. For more than 4 decades, his bass lines, productions, compositions, and arrangements have shaped jazz, funk, R&B, soul, pop, film music, and fusion at the highest level imaginable. But Marcus Miller is more than just a bassist. He is a composer, a producer, a musical architect, a multi-instrumentalist, and one of the most respected musicians of his generation. His fingerprints are all over modern music history, from the explosive comeback era of Miles Davis to the sophisticated grooves of Luther Vandross, to award-winning solo albums that redefined contemporary jazz. Marcus Miller helped create the soundtrack of multiple generations. And yet, despite his enormous influence, many casual listeners still do not fully understand how important he truly is. Because Marcus Miller didn't build his legacy through controversy or celebrity headlines, he built it through musicianship, through discipline, through groove, and through a level of musical intelligence that few artists in any genre have ever achieved. This is the untold story of one of the greatest bass players and producers in modern music history. This is the story of Marcus Miller. Before we continue, subscribe now, like this video, comment, and share. Marcus Miller was born William Henry Marcus Miller Jr. on June 14, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York. Music surrounded him from the very beginning. His father, William H. Miller Sr., was a church organist and choir director, exposing young Marcus to harmony, arrangement, and musical structure early in life. Unlike many future bass legends, Marcus did not begin his musical journey on bass guitar. His first serious instrument was the clarinet, and that detail is important, because Marcus Miller's later bass phrasing would often reflect the melodic sophistication of a horn player rather than the traditional mindset of a rhythm section bassist. As a child, he studied classical music, orchestration, and composition while absorbing jazz, funk, soul, gospel, and R&B from the rich musical culture surrounding New York City during the 1960s and 70s. At home, he listened to artists like Miles Davis, James Brown, Stevie Wonder, and Larry Graham. But one thing quickly became obvious. Marcus possessed extraordinary natural musical ability. By his teenage years, he was already playing multiple instruments fluently. Bass guitar eventually became his main voice. And once he picked it up seriously, everything changed. By the late 1970s, Marcus Miller had already become one of New York's most in-demand young session musicians. This was almost unheard of for someone so young. The recording industry in New York was fiercely competitive. Studios hired only musicians who could deliver perfect performances quickly and professionally. Marcus could do far more than that. He could read music instantly, improvise, arrange, compose, and adapt to nearly any musical situation. Soon, producers and artists everywhere began calling him. Throughout the late 70s and 80s, Marcus appeared on recordings with an astonishing list of legendary artists, including Aretha Franklin, Grover Washington Jr., Chaka Khan, Donald Fagen, and Roberta Flack. His bass playing immediately stood out. Powerful slap technique, deep pocket, sophisticated harmony, melodic intelligence, and most importantly, taste. Marcus Miller understood something many technically gifted musicians never fully grasp. The song always comes first. That philosophy made him indispensable. One of the most important early chapters in Marcus Miller's career came through his long collaboration with Luther Vandross. Working with Vandross helped establish Marcus not only as a bassist, but as a producer, arranger, and musical director. The music demanded sophistication. The grooves needed elegance rather than aggression, and Marcus delivered exactly that. On countless Luther Vandross recordings, his bass lines became central to the emotional warmth of the music. He mastered the art of restraint. Instead of overplaying, he created grooves that breathed naturally and supported the vocals perfectly. This period also sharpened his production skills dramatically. Marcus learned how songs were constructed from the inside: arrangement, dynamics, studio layering, orchestration. All of these elements became part of his expanding musical vocabulary. And those skills would soon attract the attention of one of the biggest legends in music history. In the early 1980s, jazz legend Miles Davis was preparing for one of the most important comebacks in modern music. After years away from recording and touring due to health problems and personal struggles, Miles wanted a fresh sound. Something modern, something rhythmic, something connected to contemporary black music. That search eventually led him to Marcus Miller. The chemistry between the two musicians was immediate. Miles recognized that Marcus possessed something rare, not just technical ability, but vision. Marcus became one of the central creative forces behind Miles Davis's comeback era, contributing heavily as bassist, composer, arranger, and producer. Albums like Tutu, Music from Siesta, and Amandla transformed Miles Davis's sound for a new generation. And at the center of those recordings was Marcus Miller's musical architecture. The album Tutu, in particular, became historic. Released in 1986, it blended jazz, funk, electronic textures, African influences, and sophisticated production into something futuristic. Marcus played multiple instruments throughout the album and composed most of the material himself. The result was revolutionary. Today, Tutu remains one of the defining jazz albums of the 1980s. But at the time, it divided audiences. Traditional jazz purists criticized its electronic production and contemporary textures. Yet younger musicians recognized something groundbreaking happening. Marcus Miller was helping Miles Davis evolve once again. The title track, Tutu, featured one of Marcus's most iconic bass performances. The groove was hypnotic, powerful, precise. His bass tone became instantly recognizable. Clean but aggressive, deep yet articulate, and rhythmically unstoppable. What made Marcus unique during this era was his ability to merge technology with soul. Many musicians during the 1980s became overly dependent on digital production. Marcus never lost the human feel inside the groove. That balance became one of his defining artistic achievements. Marcus Miller is often associated with slap bass, but reducing his artistry to technique alone misses the bigger picture entirely. What separated Marcus from many slap players was musical context. Every slap phrase had purpose, dynamics, conversation. His grooves were not demonstrations. They were compositions. Influenced by pioneers like Larry Graham and Louis Johnson, Marcus developed a style that combined funk aggression with jazz sophistication. His thumb technique became legendary. Sharp accents, ghost notes, explosive rhythmic articulation. Yet, despite the technical complexity, his playing always felt smooth and deeply musical. Tracks like Run for Cover, Power, and Blast became essential listening for bass players around the world. Entire generations studied his phrasing obsessively, and many still do today. One of the reasons Marcus Miller stands apart from many instrumental virtuosos is because his talents extend far beyond bass guitar. He became one of the most respected producers and composers in modern jazz and R&B. His understanding of orchestration is extraordinary. Marcus often approaches music like a film composer. Every instrument serves emotional storytelling. Every arrangement has direction. This ability allowed him to collaborate successfully across genres: jazz, soul, pop, funk, film scores, world music. Everything connected naturally through his musical vision. He later composed music for films and documentaries, expanding his artistic identity even further. And throughout all of it, the bass remained central, not as an ego instrument, but as the heartbeat of the music. While Marcus Miller spent years elevating other artists, his solo career eventually established him as a global headlining artist in his own right. Albums like The Sun Don't Lie, Tales, M Squared, Silver Rain, Renaissance, and Aphrodisia showcased his evolution as a composer and band leader. His live performances became legendary, not only because of his technical brilliance, but because of the emotional energy and groove his bands generated on stage. Marcus understood audience connection. His concerts blended virtuosity with accessibility, sophisticated harmony with infectious rhythm, and jazz improvisation with funk energy. That combination allowed him to reach listeners far beyond traditional jazz audiences. Few bassists are more closely associated with the Fender Jazz Bass than Marcus Miller. His signature instrument became one of the most recognizable bass sounds in modern music. Bright, punchy, aggressive, but still warm and musical. Over time, Marcus developed several signature bass models that became extremely popular among professional musicians worldwide. His setup emphasized clarity and dynamic response. But once again, the equipment itself was only part of the equation. The true sound came from his touch, his phrasing, his timing, and his extraordinary control over articulation. Because great tone ultimately begins in the hands. And Marcus Miller possesses one of the most identifiable touches in bass history. As Marcus Miller matured artistically, he became increasingly interested in global music and African musical heritage. This exploration became central to albums like Aphrodisia. Inspired partly by his role as a UNESCO Artist for Peace, Marcus traveled extensively, studying rhythms, instruments, and musical traditions connected to the African diaspora. The project expanded beyond jazz fusion. It became cultural storytelling through music. Marcus collaborated with musicians from Africa, Brazil, Europe, and the Caribbean, creating a deeply layered musical experience. This period revealed another dimension of his artistry: curiosity. Even after decades of success, Marcus Miller continued evolving, continued learning, continued listening. That openness remains one of the keys to his longevity. Today, Marcus Miller is universally respected across the music industry. Bassists admire him. Producers admire him. Composers admire him. And fellow legends consistently praise his musical intelligence. Artists ranging from Herbie Hancock to Eric Clapton have recognized his extraordinary versatility. Few musicians manage to balance virtuosity, commercial success, artistic credibility, and long-term relevance simultaneously. Marcus Miller achieved all four, and he did so while remaining remarkably grounded and focused on musicianship above celebrity. Marcus Miller's influence extends far beyond bass guitar. He helped redefine what modern musicianship could look like. He proved that a bassist could become a producer, a composer, an arranger, a band leader, and a global musical ambassador. His work bridged generations of black music, connecting jazz tradition with funk innovation, R&B sophistication, hip-hop influence, and global rhythm. And perhaps most importantly, Marcus Miller demonstrated that technical mastery means little without emotion, without groove, without soul. That philosophy continues inspiring musicians worldwide. The story of Marcus Miller is ultimately a story about musical excellence sustained over decades. From Brooklyn practice rooms, to international stages, to recording sessions with Miles Davis, to Grammy-winning productions, Marcus built a career defined by evolution, discipline, creativity, and groove. And even today, his influence continues growing. Young bass players still discover his recordings and experience the same reaction musicians had decades ago. How is this possible? But the answer goes beyond technique. Marcus Miller's greatness comes from musical understanding, from feel, from vision, and from his ability to make every note matter. Because truly, great musicians do not simply play instruments, they shape culture. And Marcus Miller has done exactly that for more than 40 years. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next video.